said something hurtful that you knew you couldn't take back? I mean, you really meant it, from the deepest part of your soul? Well, I have, but the thing is, I don't regret saying it. Well, that's what happened to me a couple of months ago. I said something that I couldn't take back, and I wouldn't either. My name is Mercedes, but my family calls me Pud. I'm 29 years old, and I'm a very bubbly but outspoken person. I have 2 sisters on my mom's side and a brother from my dad's side. At 5 years old, my sister's dad came and took them from my mother, and my grandmother took me. I guess my mom couldn't take care of me or my sisters anymore. I mean, we were living with other people and sleeping in the car most of the time. I hadn't minded, as I'd been with my mom, and that's all I really cared about. I was just a little kid, and I didn't care about our living conditions. I'd loved my mom so much. She was always my hero. I went to live with my grandma, who told me that my mom was going on a little vacation. This little vacation ended up lasting 8 years. For years, I didn't see much of my mom. She came around occasionally. Each time I saw my mother, she was always with a new man. She told me I'd be home with her soon. Then she would choose her boyfriend over me and my sisters. She went from this strong, independent woman to someone who just needed a man to live life, I guess. She came in and out of my life like this for years on end. Then, at one point when I was 13, she was doing well. She was single, had a great job, and I started living with her part-time. Even though we argued a lot, I was still grateful that she was in my life, as I loved her. Now I felt complete, but it would soon come to an end. One day in the 10th grade, my mom went out for a coffee and fell in love with some man called Trent's. Just because they both drank cappuccinos and liked the same song that was playing, she thought they were a match made in heaven. Yeah, right. Do you know how many people order the same thing at Starbucks and it wasn't love? I knew it was going to be a problem when one day my mom turned round and said she was going to live with Trent's and become a housewife. I wasn't happy about this, as she'd only been with him for 2 months. I didn't understand why she was giving up a job she loved for a man she barely knew. I was really confused. Next thing you know, my mom told me they were getting married in Las Vegas, and of course, I wasn't invited. Then she told me she was moving to Alabama with him 2 weeks before I turned 16. I mean, what girl hasn't waited to turn 16 years old? I was going to be an actual teenager, and my mom was going to miss it for some dude that promised her a house and some land. I was devastated. She was choosing some random man over me again. I found out that Trent's 2 teenage sons were going with them, and my mom was actually going to look after them. But what about my sisters? And mostly, what about me? How could she help with someone else's kids and leave her own? I was internally hurt, and my heart was broken. I didn't see much of my mom for the next few years. It was only when me and my sisters were all grown up that she started bothering with us again. And that was only because my sister now had a baby. She grew close to my sister, and she was actually a good grandmother to my nephew. Whenever my mom was around, I remained civil to her, but I didn't say much else as there was so much hurt there. I went on a date with this guy who was very rude and made a scene where we were having a casual drink. My sister came and picked me up, and we went back to her house where my mom and Trent's were. I was telling my mom about my day, and she was actually supportive. At least that was until Trent's butted in and put his 2 cents in. No one was talking to him, and his male chauvinistic opinions were getting on my last nerves. Do you know what my so-called mother told me when I told him I was not speaking to him? She told me I needed to take a walk and calm down. Me! I needed to calm down? What about him? Do you think she said anything to him? No, of course not. Trent's just sat there with this smug grin on his face. I couldn't take it anymore, and the years of hurt flooded through me all at once. I had flashbacks about how she left me and always chose men over her own kids. Even years later, and as a grown adult, she had not even tried to fix herself or her mistakes. She was still the same. No growth at all. I was so furious, it seemed like the room stopped, and I started crying, and she looked at me intensely. I screamed out, "I hate you, and I will spit on your grave, and if the zombie apocalypse hits, I will be the first person at your grave to give you a headshot to make sure you don't come back even in the afterlife." She went quiet for a second because I don't think what I said translated to her right then and there. Then she blurted out, she hates me also. And I told her good. Now we both know the feeling is mutual. We continued to argue while Trent just sat there acting like nothing was happening. In the end, I just left. It has been 3 months since this happened, and I haven't spoken to my mom since. Whenever I go around to my sister's, I check that my mom won't be there first, as I don't want the confrontation. Do I regret what I said? Yes, but it came from a lifetime of hurt and neglect. My mom will never change. She seems incapable of it. Who wants to be around someone that doesn't teach you anything and hasn't learned from their mistakes? If this were you, what would you have done? Would you have said how you felt, or would you have kept everything inside like you've been doing for all these years?